Roof Max of Hickory. Affordable roof rejuvenation. Visit MakeMyRoofLast.com.
I'm Ralph Mangum for the WHKY News, and this is our weekly look back at a few of the top crime stories we had for you during the week of April 7th through April 11. Here we go now. 20-year-old Garen Nathaniel Killian of Lenore and 18-year-old Kylie Latod Simpson of Hickory were arrested by Hickory police early Sunday morning. They were both charged with 7 felony counts each of attempted first-degree murder and assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, inflicting serious injury. They were also charged with discharging a firearm within the city limits and going armed to the terror of the people. Killian and Simpson were arrested in connection with an incident on Catawba Valley Boulevard Southeast in Hickory in the vicinity of the former Party City store. The incident was reported at about 12:45 a.m. Sunday. Victims include a 35-year-old male from Morganton, a 35-year-old male from Newton, and a 27-year-old female from Newton. Both suspects were in possession of handguns at the time of their arrests. Killian and Simpson were taken into custody without incident shortly after 2 a.m. Sunday behind Walmart and Sam's Club. Both suspects were placed in the Catawba County Detention Facility with bond for each now set at $100,000. First appearances in district court were scheduled today.
The defendant in this case supplied fentanyl to the victim on multiple occasions. He could end up spending more than a dozen years in prison. 34-year-old Matthew Douglas Roop of Taylorsville was sentenced to serve 10 to 13 years in prison after pleading guilty to death by distribution. The plea was entered during Catawba County Superior Court last Thursday. Roop entered the guilty plea in connection to the overdose death of a 35-year-old male victim in October of 2023. The victim overdosed on drugs supplied to him by Roop. The autopsy report indicated that the victim died of toxicity from methamphetamine, gabapentin, oxycodone, and alprazolam. The victim's cell phone was seized, and Roop was identified as a contact who sold the drugs. Roop told investigators that the victim contacted him to get fentanyl. Roop met his supplier and took the fentanyl to the victim at his residence. Roop reportedly told the victim that the fentanyl was strong and could kill him. He provided the victim with Narcan, a substance designed to rapidly reverse the effects of a life-threatening opioid emergency. Roop said he sold fentanyl to the victim on 5 other occasions and had provided him with Narcan during several of those transactions as a precaution. Roop addressed the court and apologized to the victim's family. You can get much more on this case by going to our website, WHKY.com. Reporting for WHKY News, I'm Rob Eastwood.
That's correct, Ralph. 31-year-old Richard Dean Jordan, who lists a Hickory address but lives in the Bethlehem community, was arrested Friday, April 4th by Alexander County Sheriff's officers. According to our news partner, WACB, he's charged with 4 counts of felony second-degree sexual exploitation of a minor. The charges are related to the downloading of child pornography, according to Alexander County Sheriff Chad Pennell. According to the Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center website, Jordan has been on staff since 2024. According to WACB, phone calls and emails to obtain comments from Wake Forest University Baptist Medical Center were not returned as of this report. Jordan was placed in the Alexander County Detention Center under a $1,550,000 secured bond. A district court date was scheduled for April 7th in Taylorsville. I'm Ariana Mack for WHKY.
43-year-old Jeffrey William Ottinger of Claremont was arrested by Catawba County Sheriff's officers last Thursday on a felony warrant as a fugitive awaiting extradition to another state. Ottinger is wanted in Lancaster County, South Carolina for larceny and grand larceny greater than $10,000. Ottinger remains in the Catawba County Detention Facility under a $250,000 bond with a court date on May 5th.
The defendant in this case sold fentanyl to police on 2 different occasions in 2024. 24-year-old Joshua Nathaniel Mast was sentenced to serve 6 to 8 years in prison following his conviction for trafficking fentanyl by possession on separate occasions. Mast entered a guilty plea during Catawba County Superior Court last Wednesday. Mast was given an active sentence on one of the charges and a suspended sentence of 8 to 19 months for a probationary period of 36 months on the other. If that suspended sentence is activated, it will be served at the end of the first active prison term. He will also have to pay mandatory fines totaling $1 million. On October 2nd of 2024, an officer with the Catawba County Sheriff's Office made an undercover purchase from the defendant following social media messaging between the parties. The substance was sent to the state crime lab for analysis and determined to be fentanyl. The other incident occurred September 6th of 2024 and involved another undercover purchase. The officer met the defendant at a local hotel and made the purchase following contact again through social media, making the exchange of drugs for money inside a vehicle. The substance was tested by the state crime lab and confirmed to be fentanyl. The Catawba County Sheriff's Office investigated these incidents. You can get more on this case by going to our website, WHKY.com. The suspect in this case was charged in connection to a pair of traffic stops in Catawba County, one in 2024, the other in 2022. She could serve up to 8 years in prison following her sentencing last week here at the Catawba County Justice Center. 39-year-old Jacqueline Michelle Moss of Claremont was sentenced to 6 to 8 years in prison after pleading guilty to trafficking opium or heroin by possession and possession of methamphetamine. The plea was entered during Catawba County Superior Court last Thursday. Moss will also have to pay a mandatory fine in the amount of $500,000 for the trafficking conviction. Moss was the passenger in a vehicle during a traffic stop on February 16th of 2024. During the stop, Hickory police saw a smoking pipe in plain view and made a search of the vehicle. The defendant told officers she had a substance inside her. A subsequent search revealed a substance that was sent to the state crime lab and determined to be a trafficking amount of fentanyl. Moss was the driver of a vehicle that was stopped on May 28th of 2022. During that stop, a Catawba County Sheriff's Office K-9 unit alerted to drugs in the vehicle. During a search, methamphetamine was found inside the defendant's bra. So once again, a 6 to 8 year prison sentence for Jacqueline Michelle Moss of Claremont. She was sentenced last week during the session of Catawba County Superior Court held here at the Catawba County Justice Center. Reporting from Newton, I'm Rob Eastwood, WHKY News.
2 suspects are charged with drug offenses following an investigation in Alexander County. 41-year-old Christopher Jason Kistler and 43-year-old Daphne Regina Walsh, both of Taylorsville, were arrested Friday by Alexander County Sheriff's officers. Kistler is charged with offenses including 2 counts apiece of trafficking methamphetamine and possession with intent to manufacture, sell, and deliver methamphetamine. Walsh is charged with offenses including trafficking methamphetamine and possession with intent to manufacture, sell, and deliver methamphetamine. Last Friday, the suspects were arrested following investigations that date back to 2024. Officers seized a total of 87.8 grams of meth, along with firearms and paraphernalia. I'm Ariana Mack for WHKY.
26-year-old Jackson Murphy Cartner of Hallman Mill Road in Vale was arrested by Lincoln County Sheriff's officers Friday on 2 counts apiece of breaking and entering a motor vehicle, breaking and entering, larceny after breaking and entering, and possession of stolen property. He's also charged with single counts of larceny of a motor vehicle and possession of a stolen motor vehicle. Cartner was arrested after sheriff's officers responded to a reported break-in on the 6700 block of West NC 27. During the investigation, officers learned that a neighboring property had also been broken into and a vehicle had been stolen. Investigators obtained surveillance footage from a local business which showed the suspect and the suspect vehicle, a newer model Nissan Rogue. Later that day, an employee from that same business contacted authorities to report that he had seen the suspect vehicle on Hallman Mill Road and also saw it at an address in Cleveland County. Officers responded and found both the suspect vehicle and the stolen vehicle. Cartner was arrested and jailed in the Harvin A. Krause Detention Center under a $46,000 secured bond with a district court date set for April 29th. All stolen property, including the vehicle and other items, was recovered and returned to the rightful owner.
The defendant in this case could spend up to 8 years in prison. He was charged last July following a search that resulted in the discovery of fentanyl, among other items. The defendant reportedly admitted to police that he had been selling fentanyl. 37-year-old William Thomas Ray Miller was given the active term of 6 to 8 years by the Honorable Karen Edie Williams, Superior Court judge from Mecklenburg County, after he entered a guilty plea. He also will be required to pay a mandatory fine of $500,000. During a probation search on July 3rd of last year, Miller was found with a black pouch that he said contained fentanyl and U.S. currency. Officers found white powdery substances, crystal rock substances, and blue powdery substances in various locations in the residence and the defendant's vehicle, along with more money and items of drug paraphernalia. The defendant told officers he had been selling some of the drugs. The substances were sent off to the state crime lab for analysis and were confirmed to be a trafficking amount of fentanyl. The case was investigated by the Catawba County Sheriff's Office. So once again, a 6 to 8 year prison sentence for William Thomas Ray Miller, who entered a guilty plea in a case involving the trafficking of fentanyl. That plea was entered last week here at the Catawba County Justice Center.
Thank you, Rob. 57-year-old Barry Wayne Stewart entered an offered plea to possession with intent to sell or deliver a controlled substance within 1,000 feet of a park. He was sentenced to 26 to 44 months in prison during a recent session of Iredell County Superior Court. In an offered plea, a defendant does not admit to a criminal act and asserts his or her innocence, but accepts imposition of a sentence, recognizing that there is likely sufficient evidence to convict. Stewart is being held at the Piedmont Correctional Institution in Salisbury.
A man received a minimum prison sentence of more than 2 years in a drug case. 40-year-old Tamir L.C. Randall pleaded guilty to attempted trafficking in methamphetamine, driving while impaired, and possession of a firearm by a felon. The guilty plea was entered during a recent session of Iredell County Superior Court. He was sentenced to 27 to 42 months in prison. On February 18, 2022, narcotics investigators with the Iredell County Sheriff's Office executed a narcotics search warrant at an address on Logan Street in Statesville. They'd been receiving information about the occupants of the residence possibly distributing controlled substances in the area. A search of the residence was conducted. A 9mm pistol and 1,076 grams of marijuana were found. Randall was confined in the Maury Correctional Institution in Greene County, North Carolina. I'm Ariana Mack for WHKY.
According to police reports, the suspect in this case broke into a home despite there being a domestic violence protective order in place. A woman and 3 children hid in another part of the home until police arrived. They were taken out of the home safely, and the suspect was arrested. He was placed in jail initially without bond. 34-year-old Oscar Humberto Eliza Velasquez was arrested Wednesday by Morganton public safety officers. He's charged with felony breaking and entering with intent to terrorize, violation of a domestic violence protective order, and domestic criminal trespass. The suspect also had an active warrant for failing to appear on the original crime of domestic violence charge. On Wednesday at 1:21 a.m., officers received a 911 call in regards to a break-in in progress. The caller said her children's father had gained entry to the home and was in the living room. The caller and 3 of her children were hiding in another room in the home, and also said there was a domestic violence protective order in place. Officers arrived on the scene, set up a perimeter, and attempted to have the caller and her children safely exit the home through one of the doors. The caller and her children were able to exit safely. The suspect was found in the living room and given commands to exit the home. He was detained. The suspect, Oscar Humberto Eliza Velasquez, was placed in the Burke County Jail under no bond on a 48-hour hold until a judge could set bond. Court dates were scheduled for Thursday and April 21st. Reporting from Burke County for WHKY News, I'm Rob Eastwood.
34-year-old Michael James Morgan Jr. of Stony Point has pleaded guilty to 2 counts of possession of a firearm by a felon. He entered the plea during a recent session of Alexander County Superior Court. Morgan was sentenced to 19 to 32 months in prison. The Alexander County Sheriff's Office arrested Morgan early on the morning of April 1st. He is listed as a felon as the result of a drug possession conviction in 2020. Morgan was incarcerated in the Granville Correctional Institution in Butner, North Carolina. And according to published reports, a Hickory man was stabbed to death in Kinston, North Carolina. The victim is 45-year-old Bradley Brady. The incident occurred Wednesday morning. According to a news release, Kinston police officers responded to a call reporting that a man might have been shot at an apartment complex. The call came in at about 7 a.m. Wednesday. The victim was found deceased outside an apartment. Medical responders found that the victim had not been shot but was stabbed in the chest. At last report, no arrest had been made.
The guilty verdicts came at the end of a nearly 2-week trial in Burke County Superior Court. The trial concluded Thursday. 32-year-old Dylan James Rogers was handed the sentence of life without parole for the murders of 41-year-old Brandy Deal and her unborn child. The deaths occurred on February 10th of 2023. Rogers was arrested along with 52-year-old Tammy Duckworth Boone. They were both charged with murder. Boone was still being held at the Burke County Jail as of the time I'm filing this report. First responders arrived at the scene initially in response to a 911 call made by the victim's boyfriend regarding cardiac arrest. However, they found Deal suffering from gunshot wounds. She and the baby later died from their injuries. Investigators from the Burke County Sheriff's Office interviewed multiple people about the shooting deaths and reviewed video surveillance footage from nearby cameras that showed the residence where Deal was shot and killed. So once again, a sentence of life without parole for Dylan James Rogers of Morganton. He was charged in connection to the shooting deaths of Brandy Deal and her unborn child in 2023. You can get more on this case by going to our website, WHKY.com.
Thank you, Rob. 46-year-old Cheryl Eicher Dobbs has been arrested by Maiden police and charged with 4 counts of misdemeanor child abuse and 15 counts of misdemeanor assault on a child under 12. On March 31st, Maiden police took a report regarding possible child abuse by a teacher in the 2- and 3-year-old class at the Maiden Rosenwald Preschool Academy. Officers immediately launched an investigation and communicated with the preschool's administrative staff. The preschool immediately removed the suspect from any student contact. Investigators verified the information received in the initial report. On April 1st, Maiden police obtained and executed a search warrant at the preschool. The items searched included a surveillance camera and digital video recorder, employee records, and more. Investigators reviewed hundreds of hours of surveillance footage from classroom cameras and identified 16 victims. Investigators contacted and interviewed parents and guardians of the students who were involved. According to a statement released by the Maiden Police Department, the school's administrative staff and board members cooperated fully throughout the investigation. Dobbs was taken into custody on April 10th and given a $9,500 secured bond. She is not currently listed as an inmate in Catawba County. No court dates are listed. The investigation is ongoing. 36-year-old Maynor Javier Yanez Vasquez of Hickory was sentenced to 57 to 75 years in prison following his conviction on multiple counts of trafficking methamphetamine and fleeing to elude arrest with a motor vehicle, along with maintaining a vehicle for the sale of a controlled substance. Vasquez was found guilty by a Catawba County jury Thursday at the end of a 4-day trial. The jury deliberated an hour and 10 minutes before returning its verdict. Vasquez will serve his sentence at the conclusion of a 67 to 81-year sentence he's currently serving following convictions for attempted murder and multiple counts of discharging a weapon into an occupied dwelling in McDowell County. The latest conviction comes in connection with an incident in October 2022 that involved a pursuit with the North Carolina State Highway Patrol. During the incident, a bag was tossed out the window. The bag contained 938 grams of fentanyl and 574 grams of methamphetamine. The vehicle was later found abandoned. When he was apprehended, Vasquez told investigators that someone else had been driving the vehicle. However, the Highway Patrol testified that only one occupant was in the vehicle. Tyler Burgess was the lead investigator for the Catawba County Sheriff's Office. Assistant District Attorney Howard Wellens prosecuted the case with aid from legal assistant Meredith Scott.
31-year-old Angelina Gabrielle Miller of Creston in Ashe County was sentenced to 58 to 82 months in prison after entering a guilty plea in connection to a charge filed following a June 2023 arrest. Miller had already served 661 days at the time of her sentencing. According to our news partner WACB, Miller sold fentanyl to Karma Greenlee, who later died due to an overdose on March 14th of 2023. Two suspects were identified for allegedly selling and distributing the fentanyl that killed Greenlee, Miller and William M. Oxentine of Johnson County, Tennessee. Oxentine will be served with the death by distribution charge once he has served his current time on unrelated charges in Tennessee. In March of 2023, the Watauga County Sheriff's Office notified Alexander County 911 that Miller was likely in Alexander County. She was wanted in Watauga County for felony death by distribution. Alexander County deputies found a vehicle matching the description in the Bethlehem community, and Miller was arrested. She was found to be in possession of multiple controlled substances at the time of her arrest in Alexander County. Miller is serving her sentence in the North Carolina Correctional Institution for Women in Raleigh. Reporting for WHKY News, I'm Rob Eastwood.
This has been our weekly recap of some of the crime stories we had for you during the last week. That's the week of April 7th through the 11th. Look for our weekly roundup every Saturday on the WHKY YouTube channel, along with our top stories, the crime report, local sports, and community focus. I'm Ralph Mangum. Thank you for watching the WHKY News.